Eleanor Vance walked down the hallway of the downtown Chicago office, feeling as if her feet were barely touching the ground. Her heart was pounding with happiness, and her face wore a smile that her colleagues noticed immediately, answering with smiles of their own. She had just left the director's office, where Mr. Peterson had shaken her hand and spoken the words she had been waiting 3 years to hear. "Congratulations, Eleanor. As of October 1st, you'll be the new head of the marketing department. 3 years of hard work, of sleepless nights spent on projects, of presentations where she proved her competence time and time again. 3 years during which others took credit for her ideas, interrupting her in meetings when it seemed she could never break through that invisible ceiling. And now, she had done it. Colleagues congratulated her as she passed. Brenda from accounting hugged her so tightly Eleanor was almost left breathless. Dave from IT gave her a wink and a thumbs up. Even Dolores, the perpetually disgruntled office manager, nodded with something that resembled approval. "Well done," she grunted. "You've earned it." Eleanor glanced at the clock. It was 4:30 p.m. She normally never left before 7, but today, Mr. Peterson had let her go early. Go on, celebrate. Days like this don't happen every year. She gathered her things, stowing the folders she had planned to study at home into her purse, though she understood perfectly well she would hardly get to them today. Today, she just wanted to be happy, to call her mother, to tell her husband, Michael, maybe open that bottle of champagne that had been in the fridge since last New Year's. It was warm outside. The end of September had turned out to be unusually mild, almost summery. The sun was dipping toward the horizon, promising a warm city evening. Eleanor took off her light trench coat and draped it over her arm. She wanted to take a deep breath, to feel the air fill her lungs, to feel how life was finally turning its right side to her. She decided to walk. It was only 20 minutes, but today the walk felt like a gift. Cars sped by. People hurried about their business, but Eleanor seemed to float in her own bubble of happiness. The phone in her purse vibrated. A text from her mom. "How are you, sweetie?" Eleanor smiled. She would definitely tell her tonight. The City Fresh Market on the corner was the same as always. Bright sign, automatic doors, a display of sale items at the entrance. Eleanor was about to walk past when she heard a loud male voice. "I told you to get lost. This isn't a soup kitchen." She turned around. At the supermarket entrance, a burly security guard in a uniform jacket was roughly shoving a woman holding a baby out onto the street. The woman stumbled on the threshold, barely managing to hold on to the child. The guard pushed her again, harder. "Out!" How many times? Same thing every day. The woman didn't scream, didn't resist. She just clutched the baby to her chest and took a few steps back. The infant was wrapped in some old jacket, its face pale, almost gray. The baby wasn't crying, and that was more terrible than any scream. Eleanor froze. Passers-by went around the scene, some turning their heads, others quickening their pace. Someone shook their head, someone else frowned, but no one stopped. The guard went back into the supermarket, the door slamming behind him. The woman remained standing by the wall, carefully rocking the child. Eleanor approached her. The woman was young, maybe 25 at most. Dark eyes, long, dark hair in a braid, old but not dirty clothes, and worn-out sneakers on her feet. She wasn't holding out her hand, not asking for anything. She just stood there, staring at some point beyond Eleanor, gently rocking the baby. "Can I help?" Eleanor heard her own voice as if from a distance. The woman slowly turned her gaze to her, emotionless, as if weighing whether it was worth answering. "Water," she said quietly, her voice hoarse. "The baby needs water." Her voice was calm, tired, without drama or pleading, just a statement of fact. Eleanor nodded and quickly went into the supermarket. The guard followed her with a hostile stare, but said nothing. She grabbed a bottle of nursery water, formula, a package of crackers, boxed and jarred baby food, and bananas. At the checkout, the cashier scanned the items mechanically without looking at her. $85.60. Eleanor swiped her card, took the bag, and went outside. The woman was still standing in the same spot. Eleanor walked up and held out the groceries. "Here, for the baby." Then Eleanor opened her purse, took out her wallet, and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. She held it out to the young woman. The woman looked at the bag, took the bill, then looked at Eleanor. A long, heavy stare. Then she said softly, "Thank you." Not many people stop. Eleanor opened her mouth to say something routine, like "You're welcome," or "It'll be okay," but the woman suddenly took a step closer. Her gaze became sharp, penetrating. She stared intently at Eleanor's face, as if reading something invisible. "Wait," the woman said. "Don't go yet." Eleanor stood still. Something in this stranger's voice made her stay. Something unsettling, almost hypnotic. The woman adjusted the baby in her arms. She looked at Eleanor again. "You were kind to me. Few people stop. But I have to tell you something." She paused. "My name is Cassie. I see things. Not always, but sometimes, clearly. And I see something now." Eleanor wanted to smile, to say she was in a hurry, that she had to go, but the words got stuck in her throat. Cassie was looking at her so seriously, so intently, that a smile would have felt like an insult. "Your husband is going to bring you flowers tonight," Cassie said in a flat, almost indifferent tone. "A big bouquet with a powerful scent." Eleanor blinked. "Michael, flowers?" He only gave her flowers on major holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, just because? Never. "He'll ask you to smell them," Cassie continued. "He'll say it's a gift, that he wanted to make you happy." She paused. "Don't smell them. Whatever you do, don't bring them near your face. If you breathe it in, you won't survive." Silence. The sound of cars. Someone's laughter in the distance. Eleanor stood there, staring at this woman, her serious face, the baby in her arms. "What?" she finally breathed out. "I saw this once before," Cassie said softly, but every word was clear. "A woman died from an attack. Everyone thought it was an accident, asthma, poor health. But I knew the truth. I saw her husband getting ready, buying the flowers, waiting." She looked directly into Eleanor's eyes. "You have an inhaler in your purse. I saw it when you took out your wallet." Eleanor instinctively clutched her purse. Yes, her inhaler was always with her. Mild asthma, but attacks happened, especially in the fall when the air was damp and heavy. "But what does that have to do with anything?" "You think I'm crazy?" Cassie offered a humorless smile. "You think some homeless girl is just rambling? Maybe. But if your husband brings flowers home tonight, remember my words and bring them to me. Right here. Immediately." "Why?" Eleanor finally found her voice. "So you don't die," Cassie answered simply. "I'll be here until it gets dark. Then I'm going to the shelter. If you come, you'll find me at this market." She shook her head. "Don't think this is a joke. I never joke about death." Eleanor took a step back. Her heart was racing. Absurd. Nonsense. Michael had been her husband for 5 years. They had been through so much together. Moves, the mortgage on their condo. Her illness 3 years ago when her asthma got so bad she was hospitalized for a week. He was by her side, caring for her, bringing her medicine. I have to go," Eleanor stammered. "Go," Cassie nodded. "But remember, the flowers. Don't smell them tonight." Eleanor turned and walked away quickly. Her legs moved automatically. Her thoughts were a jumble. A delusion. Of course, a delusion. The woman clearly had mental health issues. Homeless people often say strange things. It's a known fact, not something to take seriously. But then why were her hands shaking? Why did her chest suddenly feel tight, as if she couldn't get enough air? Eleanor stopped, pulled out her inhaler, and took a puff. The medication worked quickly. Her breathing evened out. Psychosomatic, she decided, just the shock of it all. She walked fast, her thoughts racing. The promotion, the joy, and now this strange feeling that wouldn't let go. Cassie's words spun in her head like a broken record. Flowers. Don't smell them. You won't survive. Absurd. Nonsense. Eleanor shook her head, trying to banish the obsessive thought. Michael loved her. They were husband and wife. He wasn't perfect, of course. Sometimes he was irritable, sometimes distant. He had been a little withdrawn the last few months, but that was work, stress. He was having a tough time, too. His company was going through a reorganization, layoffs, everyone on edge. But murder? Impossible. Eleanor reached her street. Her building was a 5-minute walk away, a standard brick apartment building where she and Michael had rented a small 2-bedroom on the 4th floor for the last 2 years. Nothing special, but it was cozy. She went up the stairs, took out her keys. The apartment was quiet. Michael usually got home later, around 8. He worked for a construction firm, irregular hours. Eleanor changed her clothes, went to the kitchen, and put the kettle on. She needed to calm down. Have some tea. Forget this bizarre encounter. Just a coincidence. What sort of things get into a street psychic's head? She opened the fridge, looked at the bottle of champagne. See? We'll celebrate together. She would wait for Michael, tell him about the promotion, and they would celebrate like a normal couple, like a family. Her phone vibrated. A text from Michael. Be home in an hour. I have some news. Eleanor frowned. News? What kind? He usually just wrote, running late, or on my way. News was unusual. She texted back, okay, I'm home. I have news too. She put the phone on the table and went into the bathroom. A long, hot shower that always helped her relax. She closed her eyes, letting the water run over her face, feeling the tension slowly wash away. Flowers. Tonight. Eleanor's eyes snapped open. Enough. Stop thinking about it. She wasn't superstitious. She didn't believe in predictions. It was just exhaustion. A long day. The sound of a key in the lock. Eleanor froze. An hour hadn't passed. Michael was home early. She quickly dried off, threw on her robe, and peeked into the hallway. Michael was at the door, taking off his jacket, and in his hands was a huge, vibrant bouquet. Roses, lilies, some exotic flowers. The heavy, sharp scent hit Eleanor in the face the moment she stepped into the hall. Michael turned and smiled. Hey, he said. These are for you. Eleanor stood in the bathroom doorway, staring at the enormous, brilliant bouquet, almost screaming with its colors. Red roses, white lilies, some purple flowers whose names she didn't know. Greenery, ribbons, wrapping paper. Michael held it all out in front of him like a shield and smiled. The smile was wide, but a little stiff, forced. Congratulations on the promotion, he said, taking a step forward. Eleanor instinctively took a step back. The scent hit her nose so hard it took her breath away. Cloying, heavy, suffocating, as if someone had poured a bottle of cheap perfume in the hallway. How did you find out? She managed to say, feeling her throat tighten. Brenda texted. Your coworker congratulated me too. Said you were a rock star, that you earned it. Brenda. Yes, of course. She would text. She had Michael's number. Logical. Everything was logical. But why was he holding the bouquet so strangely? Why wasn't he putting it down? Why was he so close that the scent was becoming unbearable? Smell them, Michael urged, bringing the flowers even closer to her face. Go on, they're fresh. I just bought them. Eleanor took another step back, her back hitting the bathroom door frame. Her chest began to constrict, a familiar sensation, the prelude to an attack. When the air seems to thicken, when every breath requires effort. Michael, please back up, she asked, trying to keep her voice even. The smell is too strong. I'm having trouble breathing. He stopped. The smile didn't leave his face, but something in his eyes changed. Tension, displeasure. He looked at her as if she had done something wrong. It's a gift, he said slowly. I went to the trouble. I picked them out. I wanted to make you happy. And you can't even smell them. I will, Eleanor said quickly, feeling her heart pound. Just give me a second. I'll put them in water and... No, Michael interrupted. Smell them now. His tone changed. It became harder, more demanding. Eleanor looked into his eyes and... For the first time in 5 years of marriage, she didn't recognize the person in front of her. He was still smiling, but it was a stranger's smile. He was still holding the bouquet, but his hands were tense. Cassie's words echoed in her head like a tolling bell. He'll ask you to smell them. He'll say it's a gift. If you breathe it in, you won't survive. It's not a delusion, coincidence, just a strange, absurd coincidence. Michael, I really don't feel well from the smell. Eleanor forced a smile. You know I have asthma. Strong scents trigger an attack. Let me just open a window, air the place out, then we can." "Are you kidding me?" Michael's voice grew louder. "I brought you flowers. I spent money, time. I wanted to do something nice. And you refused to even smell them." He wasn't yelling, but there was something in his words that sent a chill down her spine. It wasn't hurt. It was the irritation of someone whose plan was going awry. "I'm not refusing," she said quietly, trying to stay calm. "Just let me put them on the balcony. It's cooler out there. They'll last longer, and the smell won't be so strong in the apartment." She reached out her hands to take the bouquet. For a moment, Michael gripped it tighter, as if he didn't want to let go. Then he abruptly opened his fingers. Eleanor took the flowers, trying to hold them as far from her face as possible, and hurried to the kitchen. Michael followed her. She could hear his heavy, slow steps. He hadn't taken off his boots. He always took his shoes off immediately at the door. It was his rule. But today, he had walked right into the apartment in his jacket and boots, following her. Eleanor threw open the balcony door, carried the bouquet outside, and set it on the small table in a plastic bucket. The cool evening air hit her face, bringing relief. She took several deep breaths, feeling her lungs expand, the oxygen returning to her blood. "There," she said, turning back to Michael. "Now they're in the fresh air. They're beautiful flowers. Thank you." Michael stood in the doorway to the balcony, watching her silently. His face was a mask. He wasn't smiling anymore. He just watched her, studied her, as if trying to understand what went wrong. "Are you sure you smelled them?" he asked finally. The question sounded so mundane, so routine, that for a second Eleanor doubted she'd heard him right. "What?" she asked. "Did you smell the flowers?" Michael repeated, taking a step onto the balcony. Eleanor backed away toward the railing. The balcony was small, maybe 10 feet long and 5 feet wide. Michael blocked almost the entire doorway. "Michael, what's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling betrayingly. "Why are you acting so strange?" "Me? Strange?" he smirked, but there was no joy in it. "You're the one acting strange. I brought you a gift. I wanted to make you happy. And you didn't even smell them. You didn't even say thank you properly." "I did say thank you," Eleanor objected, "and I appreciate the gift. It's just that the smell is very strong, and I don't feel well." "Always with your asthma," Michael interrupted, and anger seeped into his voice. "Always some excuse. You forgot your inhaler, or the medicine is wrong, or you don't like the smell. Maybe you just don't want to accept what I give you." Eleanor fell silent. She looked at her husband and didn't understand who was standing in front of her. 5 years together. 5 years she thought she knew this person. And now he was standing here, speaking to her in a tone she had never heard before. Accusatory. Cold. Alien. "I'm going to get changed," she said, trying to keep her voice even. "And then we'll talk calmly. Okay?" She took a step toward the door. Michael didn't move. She squeezed past him, her shoulder brushing against his, feeling how tense his body was. In the hallway, she stopped, leaning against the wall. Her hands were shaking, her whole body was trembling. What was that? What just happened? She went into the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers were still shaking. She could barely dial a number. But who to call? Her mom? And say what? "Mom, my husband brought me flowers and I'm scared." It sounded insane. The police? "Hello, my husband gave me a bouquet. Help!" They would laugh at her. Cassie. She had said, "Bring me the flowers." Immediately. Eleanor shook her head. No, it was absurd. She wasn't going to run to some homeless psychic with a bouquet like a frightened fool. This was her husband, her home. She just needed to calm down and talk to him normally. The bedroom door opened. Michael came in without knocking. He had taken his shoes off. He was in jeans and a sweater, and he was looking at her with that same unreadable expression. "What are you doing just sitting there?" he asked. "I thought we were celebrating your promotion." His voice had softened, almost like it was before. Eleanor looked up at him. Maybe she had imagined it. Maybe she had worked herself up because of what that woman said. "Yes," she said. "Of course. Let's celebrate." She stood up, walked past him to the kitchen, and took the champagne out of the fridge, 2 flutes from the cabinet. Her hands were still trembling, but she tried not to show it. Michael sat down at the table, leaning back in his chair, watching her. "Are you happy about the promotion?" he asked. "Of course." Eleanor popped the cork, poured the sparkling wine into the glasses. "I've worked 3 years for this. I finally made it." "So, the salary will be higher?" "Yes. About 15,000 more a year." "Good," Michael nodded. "That'll come in handy. They're making cuts at my job. I might get laid off." Eleanor froze with the glass in her hand. "What? When?" "They'll announce it next week, but I already know. I'm probably on the list." He picked up his glass, held it to the light. "So your promotion is good timing." She sat down across from him, her fingers gripping the stem of her glass. So that was it. He was worried about his job, about money, about the uncertainty. That's why he was so strange, so on edge. "Michael, we'll get through this," she said softly. "You'll find another job. You're a good specialist. They'll hire you." "Easy for you to say," he sneered. "You get a promotion, I get fired. Funny, isn't it?" There was no joy in his words, no support. There was something else. Bitterness, envy. Eleanor took a sip of champagne. It tasted sour. "Let's not talk about this now," she proposed. "Let's just be together. Quietly." Michael drained his glass in one gulp and stood up. "I have to make a call. Work stuff." He left the kitchen, went into the living room, and closed the door. Eleanor sat at the table, staring at her unfinished glass. The silence was deafening. She could hear Michael's muffled voice from behind the door but couldn't make out the words. She got up, went to the balcony door. The bouquet was still where she had left it, huge, bright, and exuding that heavy scent. Even through the glass, she could feel the aroma. If you breathe it in, you won't survive. Eleanor closed her eyes. God, what nonsense is in my head? They were just flowers. Normal flowers. Michael wanted to do something nice. Yes, he acted strangely, but he was stressed. Work, problems, everything had an explanation. But why had he insisted so much that she smell them? Why had he watched her? Why had he asked if she was sure she had smelled them? Eleanor looked at the closed living room door, where Michael was talking. Then at the bouquet on the balcony. Then back at her phone. Cassie couldn't have known about the flowers. She couldn't have. It was impossible. Unless she was telling the truth. Eleanor took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Okay, fine. She would take this damned bouquet and bring it to that woman. Let her say what was so special about it. Let her dispel these foolish suspicions. And then Eleanor would come home, get this paranoia out of her head, and get on with her normal life. She changed into jeans, a sweater, and a jacket, grabbed her purse, and went out onto the balcony. She carefully picked up the bouquet by the wrapping, trying not to bring it close to her face. The scent enveloped her anyway, heavy and cloying. Her chest tightened again. She opened the living room door and peeked in. Michael was sitting with his phone and didn't see that she had the bouquet in her hand. "I'm going to take out the trash," Eleanor lied. "The bag is full." "Where are you going this late?" he asked, his voice suddenly wary. "Can't you take it out in the morning?" "It's full, and it's already starting to smell up the apartment." Michael stared at her for a long time. Too long. Then he slowly nodded. "Fine. Just don't be long. It's already dark." Eleanor left the apartment, closing the door behind her. Her heart was pounding from fear or adrenaline. She couldn't tell which. She ran down the stairs, out into the street. It was almost completely dark. The street lights had come on, illuminating the sidewalk with a cool glow. She walked quickly, almost running, holding the bouquet down by her side. It was a 15-minute walk to the supermarket. She would make it. She had to make it. Because if Cassie was right, if she was actually right, then the husband she had lived with for 5 years had just tried to kill her. Eleanor walked through the evening streets with this bouquet, and each step echoed in her temples with a dull thud. The darkness thickened around her. The streetlights flickered on one by one. Passers-by hurried about their business, paying no attention to her. A normal woman with flowers. Nothing suspicious. No one could know that inside her, a hurricane of fear, disbelief, and a desperate hope that this was all just an absurd misunderstanding was raging. The scent of the flowers seeped through the wrapping, and even in the open air, it seemed suffocating. Eleanor stopped several times, pulled out her inhaler, took a puff, Her lungs constricted, breathing was difficult. Psychosomatic or a real threat? She didn't know, but with every step, the certainty that she needed to go there, to that woman, grew stronger. The city fresh market appeared ahead, its bright sign, the lit entrance, the same automatic doors. Only now, everything looked different. Sinister, like the set of a movie where something terrible is about to happen. By the wall, where the guard had thrown her out just a few hours ago, stood Cassie. She was rocking the baby in her arms, her back against the brick wall. When she saw Eleanor, she wasn't surprised. She didn't even move. She just nodded as if she had been expecting exactly this. "You came," Cassie said. So he brought them. Eleanor came closer, holding out the bouquet. "Here," she exhaled. "Take them. Tell me what's wrong with them. I don't understand. They're just flowers." Cassie didn't take the bouquet. Instead, she leaned over. She sniffed the air near them without bringing her face close. Then she recoiled, her face twisting in disgust. "Put it on the ground," she ordered, and stepped back. Eleanor lowered the bouquet to the pavement and took several steps back. Cassie carefully squatted, shifting the baby to one arm. With her free hand, she unwrapped the paper. The bouquet opened like a poisonous blossom. Cassie stared at the flowers, then pulled a worn-out phone with a cracked screen from her old jacket pocket and turned on the flashlight. The light fell on the petals, the stamens, the stems. "See these?" Cassie pointed to the purple flowers in the center of the bouquet. "They're not ordinary. They're specially treated. For people like you. For asthmatics. Specially treated?" Eleanor could barely hear her own voice. "Yes, the pollen is weaponized, a concentrated allergen. If a person with healthy lungs smells it, they'll sneeze. And that's it. If an asthmatic takes a deep breath, a severe, fatal attack. If help doesn't arrive in time," Cassie looked up at Eleanor, "and help wouldn't have arrived, because you would have been at home alone. He would have gone somewhere. He'd have an alibi. You'd suffocate, collapse, die. The ambulance would come, but too late. Asthma. An attack. An accident." Silence. Eleanor stood there, staring at the bouquet lying on the asphalt, unable to move. Cassie's words fell into her consciousness like stones into water, sending out ripples of horror. "How do you know?" she finally whispered. "How could he?" "I saw this before," Cassie said evenly, without emotion. 3 years ago, another woman, another city, another husband. But the method is the same. I was living in a shelter then, worked as a cleaner at the hospital. I saw her when they brought her in, already dead. The husband brought her. The doctors shook their heads. "Asthma," they said. "It happens. I knew it wasn't an accident. I had a vision. Just like with you. Why didn't you say anything?" "To who?" Cassie gave a humorless smile. "The police? They would have laughed. A homeless cleaner accuses a respectable man of murdering his wife with flowers. Who would have believed it? Besides, I never saw that husband again. He vanished, collected the insurance and left." Eleanor felt her legs give way. She leaned against the wall to keep from falling. "Insurance," she repeated slowly. "Oh God. Michael, last week he had me sign some papers. He said it was for work, for some benefits package, an insurance package." Cassie nodded as if this was all expected. "Most likely a life insurance policy. In the event of your death, the beneficiary, him, a large sum, large enough to solve all his financial problems." "But why?" Eleanor's voice broke into a sob. "Why? We've been together for 5 years. I love him. He couldn't." "He could," Cassie interrupted. "Money. It's always money. Or another woman, or debts, or all of it together. You make money, but you're worth even more dead. It's easier to get rid of you and live comfortably." Eleanor covered her face with her hands. "This is impossible. This can't be true. Michael was her husband. They slept in the same bed. Had breakfast together. Made plans. How could he? How could he stoop to this? What do I do?" she asked through her tears. "I have nowhere to go. I can't go home. I can't." "You can," Cassie said firmly, "and you must. But not alone. First, we call for help. The right help." She stood up, holding the baby close, and pulled out her phone. "What are you doing?" Eleanor wiped her tears. "Calling 911, Cassie said, dialing the number. "You need a medical record before anything else happens. Understand? This is important. You need to be on record. They need to examine you, note the diagnosis, register that there was contact with an irritant, that your life was threatened. Otherwise, you won't be able to prove it later." 911. "What's your emergency?" A dispatcher's voice came through. "There's a woman here having an asthma attack," Cassie said clearly. "She smelled some flowers. She's having trouble breathing. She needs help urgently. Address is 1200 North State Street, at the City Fresh Market." Eleanor listened to the conversation as if in a dream. Everything was happening too fast, too unreal. An hour ago, she was happy, promotion, joy. And now she was on the street, shivering with cold and fear, learning that her husband wanted to kill her. "They're on their way," Cassie said, putting her phone away. 10 minutes. Sit down. Breathe evenly. Don't panic." Eleanor slid down the wall. It was genuinely hard to breathe. She no longer knew if it was from fear or because she had inhaled some of the poison in the bouquet. And what if they come and say everything's fine, that there's no poison? "Then I was wrong," Cassie answered simply. "But I'm not wrong. Not about these things. My visions have never failed me." The ambulance arrived in 8 minutes. A white van with blue stripes and flashing lights pulled up to the curb. 2 people got out, a man in his 50s in a paramedic uniform and a young woman with a medical bag. "Where's the patient?" the paramedic asked. "Here," Cassie pointed to Eleanor. The paramedic approached, squatting beside her. "What's your name?" "Eleanor Vance." "What happened, Eleanor?" I have asthma. I was exposed to some flowers with a strong scent, and it became hard to breathe." The paramedic nodded, taking out a stethoscope. "Show me your inhaler." Eleanor fumbled in her purse and handed it to him. He examined it, nodded. "When did you last use it?" "About half an hour ago, maybe a little more." "I'm going to listen to your lungs now. Take a deep breath." He placed the stethoscope on her back. He listened for a long time, frowning. Then he took off the earpieces and looked at her seriously. "There's wheezing? Labored breathing? You need to be hospitalized." "No," Eleanor said quickly. "I don't want to go to the hospital. Can you just record that there was an attack? That there was a threat?" The paramedic frowned. "Why do you need that?" Cassie stepped forward. "It's important for personal reasons. She needs a certificate that there was contact with a dangerous substance that could have led to death." The paramedic looked at Cassie, then at Eleanor, then at the bouquet lying on the asphalt. "Those are the flowers?" "Yes," Eleanor nodded. The paramedic stood up, walked over to the bouquet, bent down, and sniffed carefully. His expression changed. "This is not a normal scent," he said slowly. "This is a really strong irritant. For an asthmatic, this could be deadly." "Who gave these to you?" "My husband," Eleanor whispered. Silence. The paramedic looked at her for a long time, then nodded as if he understood something. "All right. I'll document everything on the call sheet." Diagnosis: acute exacerbation of bronchial asthma due to allergen contact, life-threatening condition. Hospital observation recommended. Patient refused hospitalization against medical advice. "Do you need a copy of the call sheet?" "Yes," Eleanor nodded. "Please, wait here." The paramedic went back to the ambulance, wrote something down, then brought Eleanor a sheet with an official stamp. "Here you go. Keep it. And be careful." He hesitated. "If something happens, if you're in danger, call the police. Immediately." He knew. You could see it in his eyes that he understood. He understood this wasn't just an accident, that it was something more. "Thank you." Eleanor took the paper with trembling hands. The ambulance drove away. Cassie picked up the bouquet, wrapped it in a plastic bag she found near a trash can, and tied it tightly. "This will prove your husband wanted you dead," she said. "Keep it. Don't throw it away. Tomorrow morning, you go to the police. You file a report. You show them this certificate. You show them the flowers. You demand a forensic analysis." "But it's insane," Eleanor shook her head. "The police won't believe me. They'll say I'm crazy, that my husband just gave me flowers, and They'll believe you, Cassie said firmly, because you'll have evidence. A medical certificate, the flowers, testimony, and something else. She took out her phone, showed Eleanor the screen. I recorded everything on video. You coming here, me explaining, the paramedics' examination, everything. Eleanor stared at the recording. It was all there. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Cassie looked at the baby in her arms, then at Eleanor. Because last time, I kept quiet. When that woman died and her husband got away with it, I'm not going to be quiet again. She handed Eleanor the bag with the bouquet. Go home. Act normal. Don't let on that you know. Tomorrow morning, leave early. Go to a friend's house, your mom's, anywhere, and go straight to the police. Understood? And you? I'll be in touch. Here's my number. Cassie recited it. Eleanor saved it in her phone. If anything goes wrong, call me. I'll give a statement. I saw everything. I'm a witness. Eleanor nodded, clutching the bag with the bouquet. It was heavy as a stone, like a sentence. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saving my life. Don't thank me yet, Cassie shook her head. You'll save yourself. When it's all over, then you can thank me. Eleanor walked back. The darkness was thicker, colder. She was walking with the proof that the husband she had lived with for 5 years wanted to kill her. She walked, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. She walked, understanding that the life she knew had ended tonight, at the supermarket, when a strange woman with a baby in her arms told her the truth. The building appeared ahead. The windows of her apartment were lit. Michael was waiting. What was he thinking, she wondered, when she didn't come back right away? Was he calling? Worried? Eleanor pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from Michael, 2 texts, "Where are you?" and "Why aren't you answering?" She typed a reply, "Ran into my friend Carmen. We got to talking. On my way now." She went up the stairs. She hid the bag with the flowers in a corner behind the trash chute. She opened the door. Michael was in the hallway. "Where have you been?" he asked, his voice tense. "I told you." "I ran into Carmen. She was telling me about her grandkids. I couldn't interrupt her." Eleanor took off her jacket, trying to sound calm. Michael nodded, then went back to the kitchen. She took a glass of water. Her hands were shaking so much the glass almost slipped from her fingers. She drank, feeling the cold water go down her throat, and thought only one thing: survive until morning. Just survive until morning. The night stretched on infinitely. Eleanor lay in bed next to Michael, unable to sleep. His every breath, every movement, grated on her frayed nerves. He slept peacefully, breathing evenly, sometimes turning onto his other side. The normal sleep of a normal person. A person who, just hours before, had tried to kill his wife. Eleanor stared at the dark ceiling, replaying everything that had happened in her mind. Cassie's words, the bouquet, the paramedic's certificate. She had hidden it deep in her purse, under documents and her makeup bag. The bag with the flowers was hidden. Michael must not find them. Not tonight, not before she got to the police. The clock showed 4 a.m. It was still pitch black outside. Eleanor carefully sat up, looked at Michael. He was asleep. She quietly got out of bed, put on her robe, and left the bedroom. In the kitchen, she poured herself some water and sat at the table. Her whole body was like a taut string. Her phone was on the table. She picked it up, opened her messages with Cassie. "Can't sleep," she wrote. A reply came within a minute. "Me neither. How are you?" "I'm scared. I don't know what to do." "Leave early in the morning, while he's sleeping, and go straight to the police. Don't delay." "What if he wakes up? Asks where I'm going?" "Lie. Say you're going to the doctor for a checkup. After yesterday's attack, it's logical." Eleanor nodded to herself. Yes, that could work. Michael knew she sometimes went to the pulmonologist for a checkup after an attack. "Okay, thank you. Hang in there. You'll get through this." Eleanor put the phone down, finished her water. She needed to get at least a little sleep, gather her strength. Tomorrow would be a hard day. She went back to the bedroom. She lay down carefully, trying not to wake Michael. She closed her eyes. Sleep wouldn't come. Thoughts spun in her head, each more terrible than the last. What if the police didn't believe her? What if they said there wasn't enough evidence? What if Michael found out she went to the police and, oh, don't think about that. Just survive until morning. Survive and get out. Eleanor opened her eyes at 7 a.m. It turned out she had finally fallen asleep. Michael stretched beside her, yawning. "It's morning already," he mumbled sleepily. "Yes." Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed. "I need to go to the doctor. After what happened yesterday." Michael propped himself up on his elbow. He looked at her. "What doctor?" "The pulmonologist. At the clinic. After the attack, I need to get checked out." She tried to speak casually, as if this were a routine matter. "Do you want me to drive you?" Her heart sank. That was the last thing she wanted. "No need," Eleanor said quickly. "You have to get to work. I don't want to make you late. I'll be faster on the L train anyway." Michael looked at her for a long time. Too long. Eleanor felt his heavy, assessing gaze. "Okay," he finally said. "Whatever you want." He got up and went to the bathroom. Eleanor exhaled. She quickly got dressed. Jeans, sweater, jacket. She grabbed her purse, checked that the certificate was in its place. It was. She shoved a change of clothes and toiletries into a large gym bag she found in the closet. The bag was heavy, awkward, but there was no other choice. Michael came out of the bathroom and saw her with the two bags. "What's the gym bag for?" "It's my stuff for the pool," Eleanor lied. "I want to go for a swim after the doctor. The doctor said swimming is good for the lungs. You haven't been to the pool in 6 months. That's why I want to start again." He nodded, but something flashed in his eyes. Suspicion, distrust. Eleanor didn't wait to find out. She quickly kissed him on the cheek, the usual morning ritual, and left the apartment. Behind the trash chute was the bag with the flowers. She grabbed it and ran down the stairs. It was cool outside. The sky was overcast with gray clouds. Eleanor walked quickly, almost running. The subway station was a 10-minute walk. She went down the escalator, got on the train. She clutched the gym bag to her chest and put the bag with the flowers on the floor, thinking that she was carrying evidence against her own husband. How absurd it sounded, how terrifying. The police station was on North Clark Street, not far from downtown. Eleanor got off at the right stop, went upstairs. The building was gray, unassuming, with a sign, 18th District Police Station. She stopped in front of the entrance, gathering her courage. Once she crossed this threshold, there would be no going back. Now she would officially accuse her husband of attempted murder. Deep breath, exhale, go. Inside, it was warm. It smelled of official spaces, morning coffee, paper, something else indefinable. The desk sergeant was sitting behind the counter, looking through some documents. Seeing Eleanor, he looked up. "How can I help you?" "I need to file a report," Eleanor said, her voice sounding firmer than she expected. "For attempted murder." The sergeant straightened up, put down his papers. "Have a seat. I'll call a detective." Eleanor sat on a hard chair in the hallway, clutching her purse. About 5 minutes later, an energetic man in his 40s in a neat suit appeared. "I'm Detective Miller," he introduced himself. "Come on back to my office." The office was small, cramped, filled with filing cabinets. The detective sat behind his desk and gestured for Eleanor to sit across from him. "I'm listening." Eleanor put her purse and the bags on the floor, took the certificate out of her purse, and placed it on the desk. "Yesterday, my husband brought me flowers. He insisted I smell them. He was very insistent. He watched me, asked if I was sure I had smelled them. I have asthma. These flowers were treated with something that could cause a fatal attack. I didn't smell them, thanks to a woman's warning." Eleanor spoke quickly, in short bursts, afraid that if she stopped, she wouldn't be able to continue. "I called an ambulance." The paramedic recorded a life-threatening situation. "Here is the certificate. Here are the flowers. I want to file a report for attempted murder." The detective was silent. He looked at her, then at the certificate, then at the bag with the flowers on the floor. His face remained unreadable. "Are you sure about what you're saying?" he finally asked. "Absolutely. Do you have any proof of intent? Witnesses? Other facts, besides the bouquet and your husband's strange behavior?" Eleanor took out her phone, opened her texts with Michael from the past month, and showed them to the detective. "Here, he writes that he's having problems at work, that he might be fired, that there's no money. Here, a week ago he asked me to sign some papers. He said it was for work. I signed without looking. Now I remember it was related to insurance. I think it was a life insurance policy in case of my death. Miller took the phone, carefully studied the messages, then nodded. Okay, we'll check on that. What's your husband's name? Michael Vance. He works for Siberian Construction. We live at 17 West Toledo Street, apartment 42. The detective wrote it down. Then he looked up. Tell me everything in order, from the beginning. Don't rush. Eleanor told him about the promotion, about meeting Cassie, about the warning, about how Michael came home with the bouquet, how he insisted she smell it, how he acted strangely, about how she took the flowers to Cassie, how they called the ambulance, how the paramedic recorded the threat. Miller listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When Eleanor finished, he looked at her seriously. This is a serious accusation, he said. Attempted murder. If we conduct a forensic analysis, check the insurance, prove intent, your husband is facing up to 15 years. Are you prepared for that? Eleanor nodded. I'm prepared. He wanted to kill me. I can't just let it go. All right. Then write your statement. Here's the form. He handed her a sheet of paper and a pen. Eleanor wrote, her hand shaking. She wrote that she was accusing her husband, Michael Vance, of attempted murder by provoking a fatal asthma attack, that he brought her flowers treated with a substance dangerous to asthmatics, that he insisted she smell them, that she was certain it was a premeditated murder plot. She put her signature, the date, and handed the statement to the detective. Okay. Miller took the statement, read it. Now, we'll send the flowers for forensic analysis. We'll check if they really contain a dangerous substance. At the same time, we'll check with insurance companies to see if there's a policy in your name with your husband as the beneficiary. We'll question your husband. We'll question this woman, Cassie. Can you give us her contact information? Yes. Eleanor recited the phone number. Excellent. Where will you be now? I don't advise you to go home. If your husband finds out you've filed a report, I'll go to my mother's, Eleanor said quickly. She lives on the other side of the city. Good. Leave your address and phone number. We'll be in touch when we have results. Eleanor left all her information. She stood up, picked up her bag. Thank you, she said. Thank you for believing me. I don't believe you yet, Miller replied honestly. I'm just doing my job, checking the information. If it checks out, then I'll believe you. Eleanor left the station feeling a strange sense of relief. She had done it. She had filed the report. Now it was in the hands of the police. Now all she could do was wait. She called her mother. Mom, can I come over right now? Of course, sweetie. Did something happen? I'll tell you when I see you. The journey to her mom's took 40 minutes. Her mom met her at the door, hugged her tightly. You're so pale. What happened? Eleanor told her everything. Her mom listened, growing paler, clutching her heart. My God, she whispered when Eleanor finished. My God, how is that possible? That monster. I always felt something was off about him. Always. Mom, don't. Eleanor hugged her. The main thing is that I'm alive, and he'll pay for this. He'll definitely pay. The day dragged on painfully slowly. Eleanor sat at her mom's house, drank tea, tried to distract herself with television, but her thoughts kept returning to one thing. What was happening now? Had they called Michael in for questioning? What was he saying? Denying everything? Or confessing? At 6 p.m., Detective Miller called. Eleanor, we have news. The forensic analysis confirmed it. The flowers have a high concentration of an allergen, specifically dangerous for asthmatics. A special treatment of the pollen. This couldn't have happened by chance. Eleanor's heart pounded. And what happens now? Next, we checked the insurance. We found the policy taken out in your name 9 days ago. The amount is $3 million. The beneficiary, your husband. In the event of your death by accident or illness, he gets the full amount. Silence. Eleanor could only hear her own heartbeat. We brought your husband in for questioning, Miller continued. At first, he denied everything. Said he just wanted to make you happy, that he didn't know about any allergens, that it was a coincidence. But then we asked him a few questions, and he slipped up. How? He said he bought the bouquet in the morning, before work. But we checked the surveillance camera footage from the flower shop. He bought the flowers in the afternoon, at 3 p.m., right after leaving the insurance company's office where he took out the policy. In other words, he lied. And when we showed him the footage, he fell apart, started contradicting himself. So you believe me? Yes, Miller said firmly. I believe you. It was premeditated, attempted murder. Your husband took out the insurance, bought and specially treated the flowers, knowing about your asthma, and calculated that you would inhale the allergen and die from an attack. It would have looked like an accident. The insurance would have paid out, and he would have been in the clear. Eleanor closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She was crying not from grief, but from relief. They believed her. They didn't think she was crazy. It was all confirmed. What will happen now? She asked through her tears. We have arrested your husband. We've charged him with attempted murder. Tomorrow, the court will set bail, but most likely he'll be held in custody. He's facing up to 15 years in prison. The insurance company has voided the policy and any payouts. You can file for divorce and request a protective order for your safety. Thank you, Eleanor whispered. Thank you so much. Thank the woman who warned you, Miller said. She saved your life. We'll be calling her in to testify as a witness. Her testimony is very important. Eleanor hung up. Her mom hugged her, stroking her hair like she was a little girl. There, sweetie. It's over. You're safe. But Eleanor knew it wasn't over yet. Ahead lay the trial, interrogations, divorce, the need to rebuild her life from scratch. But she was alive. She was breathing. She had survived because she hadn't smelled the flowers, thanks to Cassie. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks in which Eleanor's life was turned completely and irrevocably upside down. She lived with her mother, sleeping in her old childhood bedroom. She woke up at night from nightmares in which Michael stood over her with a bouquet, saying, "Smell them, go on, smell them." The court denied bail. Michael was in jail awaiting trial. His lawyer tried to argue it was an accident, that his client didn't know about the flowers' properties, that he just wanted to make his wife happy. But the evidence was irrefutable. The insurance policy, the camera footage, the paramedics' testimony, the forensic analysis of the flowers, Cassie's testimony. Eleanor filed for divorce. Her lawyer said the process would take several months, but it was a formality. After such circumstances, no court would deny the dissolution of the marriage. She also filed for a division of assets, though there was nothing to divide. A rented apartment, Michael's old car, no savings, 5 years of marriage had left only emptiness and the bitterness of betrayal. Word got out at work. The news spread quickly. Colleagues whispered behind her back. They looked at her with pity or curiosity. Brenda hugged her and cried, "I'm so sorry I texted him about the promotion. I didn't know. I couldn't have imagined." Eleanor calmed her, told her it wasn't her fault. Only one person was to blame, and he would answer for it. Mr. Peterson called her into his office a week after Michael's arrest. "Eleanor, I want you to know the company is on your side. If you need legal help, psychological support, come to us. We'll help. And your promotion still stands. You've earned it." Eleanor thanked him, fighting with all her might not to cry right there in his office. She wasn't used to compassion, wasn't used to people genuinely caring about her. But more than anything, she wanted to see Cassie, the woman who had saved her life, who had trusted her intuition and not kept quiet. Eleanor went to that supermarket several times, looked for her, but Cassie wasn't there. The guard, the same one who had thrown her out 3 weeks ago, just shrugged. "Haven't seen her. Hasn't been around for a while." Eleanor called the number Cassie had given her, but no one answered. Her anxiety grew. Where was she? What had happened to her? Maybe she had been taken to a shelter or left the city. Detective Miller said Cassie had come in for questioning, given a detailed statement, but they hadn't contacted her again. She had no fixed address. "But her testimony is in the file," Miller clarified. "She's an official witness. If we need to, we'll find her." That didn't reassure Eleanor. She had to see Cassie. She had to say thank you. She had to do at least something to repay her for her salvation. On Saturday, exactly 3 weeks after that terrible night, Eleanor went to the supermarket again. It was a warm October day. The sun was shining brightly. The leaves on the trees were turning yellow and red. Autumn in full swing. A beautiful, peaceful autumn, so starkly contrasting with the hell in her soul. The supermarket was the same. People went in and out with bags. Life went on. Eleanor stopped by the same wall where Cassie had stood, an empty spot. "Looking for someone?" a voice asked from behind her. Eleanor turned. An elderly woman with a shopping bag was looking at her curiously. "Yes," Eleanor nodded. "A young woman with a baby. She used to be here often, dark hair." "Oh, her." The woman pursed her lips. "They took her away about 2 weeks ago." Eleanor's heart sank. "Where did they take her?" "To some shelter. Social services came. Said the child needs proper care, that the street is no place for him." She didn't resist. Went on her own. The woman fell silent. She was strange. Never asked for money. Didn't complain. Just sat and watched. As if she saw something others didn't. "Do you know which shelter?" "How would I know?" "I didn't ask." The woman shrugged and walked away. Eleanor took out her phone, started searching for homeless shelters in the city. There were 5. She started calling them one by one. The first 3 said they had no one named Cassie. The 4th didn't answer. The 5th, the Hope Shelter on the outskirts of the city, a woman answered. "Cassie? Yes, we have someone like that with a child. Who are you?" "I'm a friend of hers." "Can I see her?" "Visiting hours are from 2 to 4 p.m. Come on by." Eleanor hung up and immediately went to the nearest children's store. She spent a long time choosing a stroller, not the most expensive one, but sturdy, strong, with comfortable wheels. The saleswoman helped her pack it. Then Eleanor went through the aisles, putting everything she might need into the cart. Soft toys, a teddy bear and a rabbit, jars of baby food, boxes of cereal, fruit purees, bananas, apples. She took whatever might be useful for the baby, not thinking about the price. This was her way of saying thank you, the only way to at least partially thank the woman who had saved her life. Eleanor arrived an hour later. The shelter was housed in an old 2-story building that had once been a dormitory. Plastered walls, blue paint. Inside, it was clean and warm. The administrator wrote down her details, led her to a visiting room, a small room with 2 sofas and a small table. "I'll call her now." Eleanor waited, nervous. The door opened. Cassie came in. She looked different. Her hair was clean, braided into a neat plait. She was wearing simple but clean clothes, jeans and a sweater. The baby was sleeping in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket. The child's face was pink, healthy. "You came," Cassie said, smiling, sitting on the sofa across from her. "I was looking for you." Eleanor leaned forward. "I wanted to say thank you. You saved my life." "If it wasn't for me, you would have died," Cassie finished calmly. "I know. But you're alive, and that's the main thing." They arrested him. Eleanor rushed to tell her. "Michael, he's in custody. There will be a trial. He's facing up to 15 years. Everything was confirmed. The insurance, the flowers, everything." "Good," Cassie nodded. "Justice was served. Thanks to you." Eleanor stood up, went into the hallway, and came back pushing the stroller, overflowing with bags. "I want to help. You and the baby. This is for him." Cassie sat frozen, staring at the stroller. Eleanor began to take out her purchases, toys, baby food, cereal, fruit puree, bananas, apples. "The stroller is sturdy, comfortable. And all this is for the child. Please, accept it." Cassie silently looked at all this abundance. Then her lips trembled. She hugged the baby tighter to her chest, and tears streamed down her cheeks, silent, soundless tears. I don't know what to say," she whispered through her tears. "No one has ever... so much kindness. You saved my life." Eleanor sat next to her, took her hand. "This is the very least I can do to thank you." Cassie wiped her tears. She nodded, unable to speak. She looked at the stroller, the toys, everything Eleanor had brought, and cried with happiness because someone had seen in her not a homeless beggar, but a person worthy of gratitude and respect. "Thank you," Cassie finally breathed out. "Thank you." Eleanor rummaged in her purse, took out an envelope. "And this too. A little money so you can—" Cassie raised her hand, stopping her. "No, the stroller and the things, I'll take. It's for the baby, but not the money." "Why?" "I didn't save you for money." Cassie looked at the baby, carefully adjusting the blanket. "I did what I had to do. What I didn't do last time. Now I can sleep peacefully." "Then at least tell me," Eleanor asked. "How did you know? How did you understand that Michael planned it?" Cassie was silent for a long time, then spoke softly. "I see things. Since I was a child. Not always, but sometimes, very clearly. I see death when it's near. I see danger. I saw it over you that day, like a dark cloud, and I knew that if I stayed silent, you would die. Like that woman 3 years ago, and you decided to warn me. Yes, even though I understood you might not believe me, that you might think I was crazy, but I had to try. I kept quiet once, and it tortured me every day. I couldn't keep quiet a second time." Eleanor wiped away the tears that had unexpectedly streamed down her cheeks. "You saved me, and I will never forget it." Cassie smiled. For the first time, Eleanor saw her smile, a soft, sad smile. "Just live. Live well. Be happy. That's the best thanks. And you? What will happen to you?" "They help here." Cassie looked around the room. "They give food, a roof over your head. They help with documents. Doctors checked the baby, said he's fine. I'll find a job, get on my feet. We'll manage. If you need anything," Eleanor took out a piece of paper, wrote down her number. "Call me. Anytime. I'll help." Cassie took the card. She nodded. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a little longer. Two women whose lives had crossed at the most critical moment. One saved the other, without asking for anything in return. Simply because she could. Simply because she had to. Eleanor left the shelter with a light heart. For the first time in 3 weeks, she felt she could breathe freely, that the fear was receding, that life was going on. The trial took place 2 months later. Eleanor attended every session. She looked at Michael sitting behind the glass in the courtroom and didn't recognize the person she had lived with for 5 years. He had lost weight, looked haggard, his hair was starting to go gray. He looked at her, and in his eyes she read desperation, but not remorse, only the desperation of a person whose plan had failed. The lawyer tried to mitigate his guilt. He spoke of a difficult financial situation, of stress, that the defendant was not aware of the consequences. But the prosecutor was adamant. This was an attempted murder with premeditated intent. Planning, preparation, calculation. Everything pointed to a cold, cynical attempt to get rid of his wife for money. The sentence, 12 years in a state penitentiary. The divorce was finalized the same day. Eleanor walked out of the courthouse and took a deep breath. It was over. It was finally over. She gradually returned to a normal life. She rented a small 1-bedroom apartment near her work. She went to a therapist. The trauma was deep, and dealing with it alone was impossible. Her job helped distract her. The new position required her full dedication, and Eleanor was grateful for that. The less time she had to think, the better. She met with Cassie several times. Cassie got a job as a cashier in a small shop. She rented a room in a boarding house. She took her son to daycare while she worked. Life was slowly but surely getting back on track. They drank tea in the boarding house kitchen. They talked about simple things, work, the weather, plans for the future. They didn't talk about that night. There was no need. Everything had already been said. A year passed. Eleanor stood on the balcony of her new apartment. She looked out at the city, illuminated by the nightlights, and thought about how fragile life is, how one breath can be your last, how one decision can change everything. She had survived. Not because she was stronger, or smarter, or more careful. She survived because she hadn't taken a breath. Because a strange woman decided not to stay silent. Because sometimes, in the darkest moment, an unexpected light appears strange, but life-saving. Eleanor smiled. Life went on, and she was grateful for every new day, for every breath, for every chance to keep on living.